Hey everyone, I'm Tom, and welcome to the Orange Chronicles, where I chronicle what I have been up to over the past week or so. Let's go ahead and start out with what I finished reading this week, and that would be Book 1 of Suneater, Empire of Silence by Christopher Verrocchio, and I had a great time with this book. I just finished it like right before recording this, so a lot of it's still really fresh, and I'm still processing a lot of things that happen, especially at the end. This is definitely a book that it really feels like it ramps up at the end and just kind of like blows the doors wide open. But overall, a really great experience. I gave it a 4 star, really liked it. And I find Hadrian, the main character of the story, to be just such an interesting character. I was buddy reading this with Noel, and a couple of times I mentioned that he's just like this really idealistic person, which is a very interesting character to follow because he has these like ideals and principles, but also like those ideals and principles are constantly challenged. So even though he wants to stick to these like ideals he's holding on to so tight, like you see him really struggle with that, and like all of the politicking that's going on behind the scenes and everything. I just had a really good time with it, which from what everyone has told me means I'm going to really enjoy the series as I continue on with it, which I do very much intend to do. My goal would be to get very close to being caught up by the time the last book comes out later this year, which is maybe a little bit optimistic, but we'll see if I can get there or not. Some of those books do get pretty long. That is a pretty long book in of itself. If I did have any criticism of Empire of Silence, I do think at one point it kind of comes to like a screeching halt where we're kind of like on this journey and we get to this point, which I'm going to be vague about for spoilers, but it really feels like the story slows down and we're really kind of like laying the foundation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just like a little bit of a criticism I have where it felt like the pacing at some points was kind of all over the place, and I didn't always entirely understand why we were spending so much time on specific things with specific characters and those character relationships, even though I know, because this story kind of spoils things for you as you go through it, that that character was going to be somebody with him for a long while. I don't know. It was interesting. And then, like I said, the ending just kind of ramped it back up to like a fever pitch, really, for me. And maybe it's just because I read it, so I kind of binge read the last little bit of it. It feels that way. But those are like minor nitpicks. I really don't have too much negative to say. And I'm just like super looking forward to continuing the series. I do have a question for the Sun Eater people out there. How necessary are those like novellas in between? Are they like absolutely necessary, or is it kind of like you can come back and read them? Because I know for The Expanse, you didn't really need to read them, but it did feel like it kind of enhanced the overall story. And there, even then in The Expanse, I feel like there's two that you kind of need to read for like the entire story to like hit you as hard as it can. So I'm curious on with the Sun Eater ones, like how necessary are they? Is it the kind of thing where you can like read the main story, come back to after the fact? Like, I'd love to hear down below in the comments like what the feeling on that is. But yeah, that is my thoughts on Sun Eater. Maybe I'll have a little bit of a different thought after I've let it sit with me. I wanted to finish it before I came in and recorded, and now I kind of wish I had given myself a little bit more time because a lot does happen there at the end, and it's a triumphant moment, but also like covered in this like sadness, tragedy kind of thing at the same time. So just man, yeah, it was a really good story. I'm glad I'm finally getting around to it. I hate that I waited so long now, but at least I can still catch up and kind of like be on the bandwagon before it is completely over. But that leads me to what I am still working on, and that would be Mercy, Tears of the Fallen by Chance Dillon. I am at about 60% of the way through this book, and once again, another book that I'm really enjoying. I mentioned this last week, but like the two books that I've been reading at the same time have just been like super great. I don't really have too much to say because I don't want to spoil anything for this one. Other than I'm really enjoying it. I feel like we are at a point in the story where either I'm going to get a bunch of things explained to me, or it just feels like it's leading up to that. We're at this point where some like really big events happen. There's been some like big shifts on how certain characters are going to have to deal with the world, and I really feel like we're maybe going to get some explanations on not everything, because this is going to be like a 4 book series or something like that, and I don't expect everything to explain to me in book 1, right? But there's been a lot of mystery and like a lot of knowledge that hasn't been shared completely throughout this story, and I really feel like we're kind of at that point where at least some of that knowledge is about to come tumbling out. Like we're going to get it because we now have characters asking the same questions I think the reader is supposed to be asking at this point, which I think is, perfect lockstep with what's going on. And so I'm very curious to see what some of the reveals are going to be, mostly around like the world and the magic, in like what this element of the story is. So I'm curious and hopeful that that's what's going to happen. It hasn't been too bad. I don't really have like, this is one of those stories where I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's just like things are working for me on various degrees, more or less, but I don't really have like anything bad to say about it, which is nice. So very much, and I'm enjoying the story, and hopefully some of those answers definitely give me a bunch of answers and everything, because I do want to know things, and I think it's worked this long in the story of like holding out some of those answers, but it does kind of get to the point where like if we don't get any answers in this book, it's going to be a little bit frustrating. So I'm curious to see what is going to happen in this last like 40% of the book. So like I said, I'm just a little bit over halfway, so there's still plenty of time left to explain stuff, or maybe it won't bother me. I said that last week, where like the not knowing hasn't really bothered me up to this point. I know in other books that it has, but in this one, I'm just kind of like along for the journey, and I think it's working really well. So we'll see what ends up happening there. And then this is going to be my next read, now that I have finished Empire of Silence, but that is Dragon's Egg. This is like another sci-fi book, and so I think it has to do a lot with first contact, and basically a species is discovered that like lives on the surface of a sun, and it makes no sense that they should be able to exist and all this stuff. That's about as much as I know about it. I kind of coming into this one pretty blind, but I'm looking forward to picking that one up and getting a little bit more of sci-fi in here mixed with some good fantasy. And then I also, this is going to kind of bleed me over into manga slash comics time, I guess, because I also started this Superman novel, All-Star Superman. This was recommended to me a while ago by some Britain at some Oki dude, and I just have had it sitting on my shelf and have not picked it up yet. So what is this? I don't know, 10 pages in, a couple panels in, so not very far into this, but I'm reading this to kind of get, not that I think the new Superman movie is based on this at all, but it's nice to get a little Superman in before I go and watch the new movie that comes out sometime in July. So that will be fun to get into that. On the manga side, I am caught up on Vinland Saga, and I'm very curious on what is going to happen. We are like super deep endgame of Vinland Saga, so obviously not going to spoil anything. It feels like we have somewhere between like 2 and 8 chapters left of the story, depending on what is going to happen. I have predictions, and I've talked to some people about what my predictions are. I have no idea if they're going to be right, but if you are a Vinland Saga fan, it's been quite the journey. I'm glad it's ending. It feels like we're like, it could be one of those stories that got dragged on, and we kind of tried to do the same thing again and again and again. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to get a pretty concrete like finish to it and everything, and we'll see how that goes. And yeah, it's crazy. It's one of those series that I've been reading for so long, that the fact that it's so close to the end, I just kind of have that like nervous anticipation of the ending, right? If that makes any sense. And then lastly, for comics and manga, I went ahead and picked up this bad boy from the library, which was maybe a mistake because this thing is thick. This is the Invincible Compendium, the first one. So there's 3 of these, and like I said, I mean, this thing is massive. This is I started watching this because of the TV show, or I wanted to read this because of the TV show, if I could speak correctly. Basically, I'm really tired of waiting for the seasons. And I saw something that the first 3 seasons covered like just a little bit more than this first compendium, and I know that there are differences between the 2, right? That's not an exact one for one, that there's being changes made, but that's fine with me. I still kind of just want to go ahead and read the story, and I just really don't want to wait anymore. When season 3 came out, I started to see like very light spoilers for things that were coming, and not that for some reason like spoilers in comics don't bother me the same way that they do for a lot of things. I'm pretty spoiler sensitive, and like they don't bother me a whole lot in general. But I was like, I have the ability to just go and read these and then not be spoiled for anything, and still have the best of both worlds, where because the show is not following exactly this comic, I can still be surprised and enjoy that at the same time. So I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds here. But man, this thing, I knew it was long, but this thing is long. So hopefully I finish this in enough time before I have to take it back to the library, because yeah, it's a big it's a big comic. And then just very lastly, quickly on the what I watched front, I like watched no TV this week, but I did go to a concert. I went to if you're familiar with the band, you're gonna love it, and if you have no idea who this band is, you're gonna just be scratching your head. But I went and saw Baby Metal live, and it was just an amazing show. They were great. They were the headliner, and they were just an awesome time to see live. Great show, sounded great, the performance, just everything about it. The venue was packed, so it was like super full, and everybody was there like for them. So it was like, because they were the headliner, like it was for them, so everybody was into it, everybody was enjoying it, and yeah, just had a great time. So that has been my week. A lot of good reading with Empire of Silence, Mercy, comics. I mean, we've got all kinds of things going on here. And so, yeah, it's been great. Definitely feel free to let me know how your reading has been, anything you've watched, played, all that fun stuff down below in the comments, or always on Discord. I am always available there as well. But that's all for me. And remember, read what you want, when you want.